Hello and welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. One of the most spoken words you'll see people talking about in the news and in social media due to COVID-19 is anxiety. You'd be hard-pressed to find many people in the world who aren't dealing with some sort of anxiety due to the pandemic. But understanding how to deal with it, both personally and how to help others deal with it, is really a critical need as well. But there are too many people who need some professional help, and way too many people giving not necessarily the best advice. So it was important to me to get a little couch and therapy time for all of us with an actual professional who I was lucky enough to speak with way back on episode 6. Dr. Jen Mann is a licensed psychotherapist, best-selling author, TV host, SiriusXM radio host, celebrity couples therapist, sports psychology consultant, and subject matter expert on relationships. And on this episode, we'll discuss dealing with anxiety, social distancing, how to deal with stress, cashew cheese, Omaha steaks, the Calm app, TikTok, Peloton, and a lot more. So let's tune in to Dr. Jen with the one and only Dr. Shark, that's honorary doctorate for me anyways, on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Dr. Jen, thank you so much for joining us again on A Shark's Perspective. You were on episode 6, if you can believe it or not, over 200 episodes ago. What I've heard
Wow.
from most people that being on A Shark's Perspective has simply changed their lives forever. I know you're in a lot of media, but what say you to that?
Oh, look,
Be
I,
nice.
I think I think that you do an amazing job getting the word out and interviewing from different perspectives. And I think that um, anytime I have the opportunity to get the word out about what people can do to have healthier relationships, to be healthier themselves, I'm always
Yeah.
grateful for the experience. And you've done a fabulous job with your podcast and getting the word out to people. So it's always an honor to work with you.
Well, thank you. And checks in the mail. But, we talked about relationships. We talked about performance before. But, one of the things that I really wanted to reach out to you about as a therapist, and I don't go to therapy, I'm all for anybody that does go, but it seems to be that the only word used more in the English language today on social media or TV, other than COVID-19 and coronavirus, is anxiety. And so many of us are obviously touched by the disease or by someone they know. I know people who've had this. I've had several people and family and friends who had health scares, and I've known several that did have it, several that just had pneumonia, and it feels like it's a Bond villain just in the name alone with COVID-19. But so many people are staying at home and staying sheltered in place, and then they're watching too much news and too much TV. And I'd like for you to kind of help differentiate, if you will, what is the difference between the anxiety that we hear about nonstop on social and news versus what actual clinical based anxiety is?
Well, look, here's the difference that's important to people. Right now, there is something to be anxious about. And our systems go on alert. We are facing an invisible enemy that has the potential to kill us, that we know is chasing us, essentially. And so it is appropriate to feel some level of anxiety when our lives are threatened. So that is appropriate and even healthy. Where it crosses the line is when you can't get out of bed, you can't
Yes.
function, you can't think straight, you can't do your job, you're debilitated, you are having panic attacks. That's where it crosses the line from this is normal, healthy anxiety given the circumstances. And that's what we have to really take into account, that we are facing abnormal circumstances, and therefore it is normal to have some level of anxiety at this point.
Yeah, I simply worry, having known people that had clinically diagnosed anxiety, known them very well and what they go
Mhm.
through. So it's something that I guess that I'm sensitive to. So I'm obviously worried about people who really have it versus the one that say they have it and they say it so much it makes the rest of the world somewhat nervous. And I guess that's my biggest concern. Do you, when you look
But
at a, go ahead.
I'm gonna disagree with your perspective on
Sure.
this. What I'm gonna say is that anyone who says I feel anxious right now is
Yeah.
legit.
Sure.
Everybody feels anxious, whether it is a full blown clinical anxiety disorder or not, it's
Hmm.
still legit. I think that it's important that we
Good point.
acknowledge our friends, our families, our coworkers, our loved ones, that whatever they're feeling is real, and we are better off acknowledging it, normalizing it, and talking about it so that we can move on. We don't heal what we don't face by saying, well, you know what, you're not that anxious. You're not having panic attacks, so you're exaggerating. All that does is upset the person more, prevent them from talking about it, and escalate their anxiety and make them feel more alone and isolated at a time when we're all literally isolated. So
Absolutely.
to me, the answer is to ask the person about what's going on. Hey, is this debilitating? Tell me more about how you're feeling. What's going on? What are you finding helpful when you do feel those feelings? What do you find makes it worse? So that you can help a loved one problem solve, because a lot of the time people sort of are on automatic pilot, especially right now, because look, we're in survival mode.
Hmm.
And so someone may wake up and turn on the news because that's what they've been doing since the beginning of this pandemic, or they may talk to people on the phone who they don't have to talk to, who raise their anxiety. So to be able to say, like, hey, what are you doing? How are you running your day? What's going on? What
Hmm.
choices are you making that might make it better or worse? I think is really important to explore with people that we care about.
Great point, great clarification, and I love that dispute. So, is there a type of anxiety, from a clinical perspective, that you feel this is something we can compare to this? And the reason I'm asking that, it doesn't quite feel like a funeral. It doesn't. I haven't been divorced, so I don't know. But is there something else that maybe I don't know of anybody else that's over 100 that's gone through the Spanish flu, but we didn't have
Exactly.
social media then. But what is something that's tangible that people can relate to think about it? Because the only thing I can really come close to is 9/11, and that was a lot different.
I don't think there's anything in our lifetime that we can compare it to that has touched us. I mean, perhaps you can say, in other places of the world, Ebola or
Yeah,
SARS or something like that. But really, part of the reason why this is so extraordinary, so hard to wrap our minds around, so um, massive psychologically, is that we have nothing to compare this to. And one of the things we're talking about a lot, and I'm sure your friends are, and your family, and everyone is how does this end? Because nobody has ever been through this in our lifetime. So we don't know, how does a pandemic end, and how does a pandemic end in a modern day society where people get on planes, where people go places, where people encounter each other. So, on one hand, we're very fortunate that we have the internet, that we are able to spread the word quickly about sheltering in place, about face masks, about washing hands, about all that stuff. On the other hand, we are such an intertwined, interconnected world because of the way our modern day society operates, that it's much harder to contain. And also, we impact each other so much more than I think any of us realize, in ways
absolutely.
positive and negative.
Yeah. So, from a therapist perspective, what is the best way that people should be dealing with this? I mean, what's your prescription to most folks dealing with this today?
Well, a few things. First of all, create structure. At this point, I think we're all sheltering in place. And I think a lot of people who are not used to working from home are struggling a bit. It's especially challenging when you have children, young children. I mean, right now, I am talking to, in my private practice as a therapist, I'm talking to singles who are sheltering alone. I'm talking to families who are sheltering together. I'm talking to couples who are sheltering together. Each one of those has its unique challenges, which we can talk about as well. But every one of them needs structure. I also am recommending to people to exercise every day, even if it is an online yoga class. Set out your clothes the night before so that you make sure to do it. I recommend doing it first thing in the morning if you can. If you have children, try to include them. Try to do it right now. I'm a huge fan of Peloton. Peloton has a 90-day download of their classes.
Yeah.
You don't have to bike or a tread. I take their yoga classes, their strength classes, flexibility, cardio, all that sort of stuff. They have family meditations. There are a lot of other apps, and you can even go on YouTube or online to find classes to take to start your day. So I recommend exercise, starting your day positive, preparing the night before, writing up a schedule every day, not just for yourself, if you are part of a family or part of a couple, so everyone knows who's doing what when. For example, right now I'm on a podcast with you. Eric is downstairs and he is working. For those who don't know me, that's my partner.
Yeah.
And so he knows, hopefully, not to call up to me in the middle of our podcast. So, it's important that couples have a sense of when they have important phone meetings, since people are working from home, so they're not disturbing each other and getting on each other's nerves. Also, a division of labor. One of the biggest complaints I am hearing, especially from women, is an unfair division of labor. And that creates a lot of resentment when one person feels like they are doing all the work or all the childcare and the other person is not. So, really going through, make a list together of household chores, of things you need to do, and go through. You pick one, I pick one. You pick one, I pick one. But really also reducing the amount of media. I think it's very important to be informed, but there's a certain saturation point that we're reaching where it
Oh, yeah.
shifts over. It's like a tipping point from informed to just anxious, overwhelmed, and drowning in information. So, and I also recommend people create social time with their friends. FaceTime. I have a friend who just invited us to do this online FaceTime game together. I have a lot of friends who are doing, happy hour with their friends on Zoom. So really creating that kind of social interaction. And I also think, especially with couples and families, having some time that is separate from the other person. And even if you're in a studio apartment and it means going into a bathroom to FaceTime with
Yeah.
a friend, it's really important to have some separation time and some together time, and also to have date nights. I think that the power of date nights are really underestimated right now because we're so stressed, and to also have coronavirus free conversation
Yes.
map to be like, for the next hour or the next 2 hours, let's have no conversations about the virus. I know, for example, Eric and I had a date night on Saturday night where we had a virus-free evening. Pretty much, we stuck to
Yeah.
it as best as we could. We had a lovely dinner.
Where did you go?
big
Did you go
drinkers.
to the den or the kitchen?
We went to the dining room. It
Okay,
was
good.
very
Very
Yes,
formal.
it was very fancy. And we just really kind of changed the vibe. And obviously, it's incredibly stressful right now for everyone, and we are no different. And we got to kind of put aside our stress for a few hours to have a lovely evening and connect. And that's really important in this day and age. I posted a picture on my social media, because I try to really show people, I'm not just talking about this stuff. I'm going through it with you.
Yeah. How do you help people then look at this, especially with your patients, if they're already going through anxiety? You just address everything
Sure,
that dealt with the at home situation, which was like
sure.
perfect. But
Yeah,
people are dealing with a different,
yeah,
external anxiety that comes from the lack of touch with their employers.
yeah. And also, I'm talking to a lot of people who are worried about losing their jobs, who have had to take pay cuts, who are worried
Exactly.
their company going under. Look, I'm a big fan of the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And
Amen.
whether you're so religious or not, to me, this is kind of a cornerstone of how we have to deal right now. That we have to really recognize what are the things that are out of our control, and we have to work on letting those things go. And we have to look at what are the things I can control. What we can't control is how hard we work, how well we perform given the constraints that we are under. That there's only so much that we can do, and we need to make sure we're 100% in the game, that we're not letting our anxiety prevent us from doing a good job, distract us, preventing us from taking care of business. Because right now we want to be the employee who is working their butts off, that is impressing people, that is showing their loyalty to the company, because then you're going to be the last one to go when it comes time for them to let people go. So that's really important. um, proving your value and your worth. And then also, one of the things I'm talking to a lot of my clients about and my friends is that right now we have to be so in the moment. And what I mean by that is we have to ask ourselves questions. Right now, do I have a roof over my head? Right now, do I have food to eat? Right now, in this very moment, am I okay? And sometimes we have to take it 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. We have to take it in small increments, because one of the things that makes our anxiety go up exponentially is we start living in the future. We start looking at what's going to happen in the future. Am I going to lose my job? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? It's out of our control, and worrying about it is not going to change the outcome. Yes, we have to prepare. We have to make sure that we're making good choices. This is not the time to, you know, splurge on an expensive handbag when you're not sure if you're going to have a job next week. So, in that way, it's important to think about it. But we need to really stay focused on doing our jobs and performing.
How much of this anxiety do you think is generational by nature?
Um, I think that at this point, everybody is anxious.
Yeah,
I
but
think every generation
do
is
you
anxious.
see older people being able to deal with it any better than younger people who may have been socially distant for a lot of years because of phones and social media rather than now wanting to be together with each other physically?
Um, no, I mean, look, I'm seeing grandparents miss their
Oh, yeah.
children and their grandchildren. I'm seeing 20 somethings, frustrated that they can't date and hook up
Yeah.
and go out with friends and everything in between. I'm seeing, my own teenage daughters frustrated that they can't go and do a sleepover or hang out at the mall or go ice skating with their friends. So I think every generation is hit by this in a very significant way. And I do really believe that this is going to have a long term impact on our psyches for generations to come.
One of the things, and I'll bring up your Peloton example, made me think of
Mhm.
it, is this morning I was watching TV. Or at least I had the TV on. I was watching in the background, and I rewinded it after the DVR after seeing Good Morning America, and they
Mhm.
had Robin Roberts was interviewing someone who I believe was a motivational Peloton instructor. I'm not sure what her title was, but the lady was great, and I'm sure she's more than qualified to motivate people on bikes, and I'm sure she has a huge following. But it made me think of a lot of people out there that are giving advice. Do you ever worry that some of the advice that's out there, I mean, we have the same problem with medical advice, getting it from the wrong places. Do you worry at all about the advice that people have for their mental health today and where they're getting it from? Because, if you've got a lot of followers in a platform, somehow a lot of
Sure.
people feel they're qualified to give mental health advice when you know fully well that they are not.
Look, the answer is yes and no, and I have a feeling probably the person who was on was probably Robin Arzon, who is the head Peloton instructor, who's incredibly
Yeah.
inspirational
And
and
by the way,
amazing.
she was great. I heard
Yeah,
nothing she say
yeah,
that was wrong, but
yeah,
it just sort of
yeah,
sparked a thought in my brain.
yeah. Look, here's the thing. I think that we can get great advice from a lot of different places. That said, I went to school for a very long time to do what I do. I got spent 2 years getting a master's degree, 4 years plus a year to write a dissertation for my doctorate. I did 3,000 hours under supervision, had to pass a written and an oral exam that at the time had a 14% pass rate in order to do what I do. Where I worry more is about life coaches that, well, there are some good ones out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everyone's terrible, but there is no required training. And a lot of the time now, people don't realize the difference between a life coach and a licensed therapist. And there's
Yes.
a huge and as a licensed therapist, we are trained about mental health. We are trained about personality disorders. We are trained about suicidality, depression, anxiety, medication. We're trained in a way that most people don't realize because, look, you can get some great advice from a life coach, but when things get very serious, if you really get into trouble, if you're having a clinical depression, if you are having anxiety attacks, that's not necessarily the right person to be talking to. And I think it's important that the public is informed about the kind of education and study that goes into being a licensed therapist, and that when they are looking for help for their mental health and their well-being, especially right now, that they're really looking at people who are qualified. Again, you can get great advice on Instagram in a meme and something that inspires you,
Right.
but to do the really in-depth work, you want someone who's qualified.
Yeah, and I think that's why sometimes I get irritated with the people who are giving advice, having known people that had actual clinical diagnosis and they've been on medication for years and things like that. And I don't want to discount people's feelings, but I joked not that long ago. I love to think if somebody, I just between now and the last time I saw you, I probably swam with sharks a dozen times. And I think about how, for me, that's my happy, oddly enough, non-anxiety place. But I
Yeah.
joked with a post on Twitter. I remember not that long ago about how our parents and grandparents fought in wars and world wars, and great grandparents who survived the Spanish flu. And my great uncle even won like the highest award by the French government for his part with the Allies during the Battle of the Bulge, where he almost lost his feet due to frostbite. And yet I'm being asked to make the major sacrifice by watching a lot of Netflix and TikTok videos while I get things delivered to my doorstep by Amazon. So
Yeah.
part of me sometimes wants to go crazy, and it is stressful. It's stressful for every person on the planet. I think if anything, it's helped bring a lot of us more closely together. But I guess I get frustrated with the people who are screaming anxiety for attention versus the ones that have medically diagnosed problems where it's having a hard time getting out of bed because of it. And that's what I'm
But maybe
wrestling with
the,
sometimes.
but maybe the people who are screaming for attention need the attention for some other mental health
Yeah, that's true.
reasons.
That's a great
I
point.
think we're very complex creatures, and I think we're always trying to get our needs met in order to survive. And I think that some of those people maybe feel really isolated. Maybe they do feel like they need the support to get through this. And yet, look, you bring up a great point, and we're very fortunate. There are a lot of people who are on the front lines, whether it is the person delivering our Amazon package, or our garbage man, or our nurses,
Oh
or
my gosh.
doctors,
Yeah.
or grocery clerks. And I'm talking to a lot of those people as well, who are saying, I have to go to work. And I was talking to a doctor the other day who was saying, there are a lot of people here who have the virus, and we have to keep working regardless until we have symptoms that are so bad it's debilitating. It's assumed that we all have the virus and we have to keep working, otherwise there's no one to take care of sick and dying people. So I get what you're saying, and that's one extreme. And at the same time, it's legit
Yeah.
to be home and to be frustrated and to be going a little stir crazy and to feel overwhelmed. I was talking to someone with a toddler who's sheltered in place with a 3-year old, and who, is obviously handling running a household, washing dishes, laundry, meals, working, like all of this stuff, and is super overwhelmed. And that's legit too. It's like, if you were to have one arm amputated, but you had a friend who had two arms amputated, it doesn't mean that having your arm amputated wasn't upsetting and
Right.
debilitating for you, and that it didn't rock your world just because your friend had two arms amputated. And it's an extreme example, but it's very relevant to what we're going through. Whatever you're going through in your world is legit. Yeah, sure, there are people out there who have it way worse, and my heart goes out to those people. Like, that is, it's devastating, it's terrifying what they're going through. And at the same time, we need to tend to our own emotional experience without saying, like, oh, well, that person has it so much worse, so I have no right to have feelings. When we deny our feelings, we get into much bigger trouble.
Could not agree more. And that's a perfect example. I just think of what the doctors and nurses and firefighters and policemen have to deal with. I mean,
Yep.
my God, the people that are making, $10 an hour working in a grocery store. I mean, good
Yep,
Lord,
and
you
they're on
talk
the
about the front lines.
Yeah.
And if they're not there, you're talking about civil unrest.
Yeah, no, I mean, without those people, we would have no food. We are right.
Exactly.
There would be massive civil unrest. If we can't get food, we're in big trouble.
What are your thoughts on celebrities and the advice that a lot of them are giving? And they're putting out a lot of videos. I've seen the ones where, and I'm a huge fan of Schwarzenegger, but it's upset me when
Yeah,
he sits in his hot tub with his, $100 Cuban cigar, and he's
yeah,
talking about how he's all in this together. Or you've got a bunch of celebrities that sing Imagine, and
yeah,
it just, they get torn up on social media because I can't imagine that they have gone to go get toilet paper on their own. They have
yeah,
sent one of their assistants or two of their
yeah,
assistants, or if their assistant had an assistant, to go get them
yeah,
toilet paper. I mean, it's just
yeah,
very interesting to see where people have followed on social,
yeah.
especially with celebrities, and now you see that they're so completely disconnected.
Yeah, look, I'm hearing a lot of that, and I think that a lot of the things that we consider to be inspirational and aspirational before this virus now can breed resentment.
Yes,
And I think
such a
that
great point.
it's a tough balance, because one of the things that we have wanted from our celebrities is for them to show us their beautiful homes, show us their, $500 cigars, so that we can be inspired and be like, oh, I want to work really hard so that I can have that too one day. So, look, I think that anywhere where we can get advice, I don't care if you're in your hot tub with your $500 cigar, or if you are in a totally different situation struggling to get by. I think that anywhere that we can get any advice that inspires us and helps us, I'm all for it. That said, I think it's important for celebrities to be really aware that not everyone is in their situation, that they are in a very unique, special situation where, a lot of people are struggling to get toilet paper in their house, and, Schwarzenegger may have a whole garage filled with
Mhm.
it. So I think that it's important to be sensitive, and at the same time, let's get our inspiration wherever we can get it.
So I know this is a marketing, advertising, business question. I'm not going to pick on
Mhm.
a therapist with this answer. I want to ask your viewpoint. How should brands position themselves? How should they communicate to people, knowing the human psyche and how people are
Mhm.
dealing with anxiety today? I know
Sure.
you're not supposed to be a marketing consultant, but if you were given advice to someone to tell them how to message to people who are dealing with this world round, what would you tell them?
I would say it's important to be mindful of the relationship with the consumer and what the consumer is going through psychologically. And I think that any company that is offering something that is helpful to the consumer, that is offering a discount, that's offering a free something, that right now, I think that we all feel an enormous sense of sensitivity and gratitude to those that give to us. And that a company that says, you know what, buy two, get one free, is not only helping themselves, but helping someone in a time of struggle. So I think that it's important to be aware of the relationship with the consumer, and what the consumer's emotional world is like, and what their needs are.
Dr. Jen, I didn't get to ask you on this many moons ago on episode 6, but I now ask this of all my guests. You're in Beverly Hills, close to all your celebrity friends with the massive mansions, but you're closer to the beaches. What is your favorite kind of shark and why? What's a
I don't know
therapeutic shark?
I don't know enough about different types of sharks. I would probably need a little shark 101, but I would say any shark that doesn't bite would be my favorite kind.
Perfect.
I don't want to eat me.
Perfect. Well, Dr. Jen, it's that special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I am ready.
All right. Number 1, yoga or Pilates?
Yoga.
All right. Number 2, and this is
And by the way, yoga via Peloton yoga app.
okay. Good point. Number
I
2.
do like, but I do like them both.
All right. Number 2. This is really for which media we should consume more often, or you could say which one could we consume less often, TV or social media.
I would say that we could consume both less often, but I think it's important to set limits on both. I think it's important to be informed and get our news, but I don't think we need 10 hours a day. I think, 2, maybe 3 a day is probably a good cap. And I think that when it comes to social media, I think a lot of people are getting inspiration and feeling less alone. And at the same time, it can suck us away from
Yes.
our connected relationships, which are so important right now. So again, I think limits are key.
Agreed. Number 3. Here's a nice
Mhm.
little pivot. Vegan or vegetarian?
Vegan, no question. I've been vegan for a decade. Prior to that, I was vegetarian since the age of 10 when I saw a documentary that showed the conditions of the slaughterhouses. I didn't realize until I heard Kathy Freston talk about the suffering on your plate that the dairy industry is basically what a lot of vegans call liquid meat, that the dairy cow who gives birth to a baby boy cow, that becomes your veal, and that the girl cows get enslaved into the dairy industry where they're kept in cages so small they can't turn around, and they are pumped with hormones and kept in horrific conditions in enormous pain. So to me, there's no question vegan is the way to go. Not to mention that studies show that vegans live on average 15 years longer than meat eaters, and vegetarians 6 to 7 years longer. So I'll take the 15 years, please.
Okay, let me make a note real quick to not send you that gift certificate to Omaha Steaks. So
For sure.
yeah,
Yes. No, I will.
number four, best app to use to make somebody smile right now or feel better about the world: the Calm app or TikTok.
I'm more of a Headspace fan, but really my favorite app is Peloton.
Okay,
So,
fair enough.
I mean, I like Calm. My kids are obsessed with TikTok. I'm on TikTok. You can find some videos I've made, but really, for me, the Peloton app has been my saving grace through all of
No
this.
kidding. All right, number
Yeah.
5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits
Mhm.
or cornbread.
Ooh, that's tough. As long as it's vegan, I would probably say cornbread. But this is the toughest question I've been asked to date. Um, I'm thinking biscuits with vegan butter. This is very hard. Can I have both?
No, it's Sophie's choice. You got to pick one or the other. I
Oh,
don't know how you eat biscuits with a vegan gravy though.
you, there's vegan gravy and it's fantastic. There's vegan everything.
I
Like you,
know.
like you can be vegan with no deprivation whatsoever. Um,
Yeah, you
you
lost me
know,
at cashew cheese, so I'm sorry.
oh my, have you tried Miyoko's
No.
cheese? It's phenomenal. Try Miyoko's Creamery. It's some of the best cheese around. There's so many great cheese companies now. Cheese has come a long way. I thought that I could never go without cheese, but the vegan world has exploded with great cheese options.
Interesting. All right, so Dr. Jen, where can people find out more about you, follow your thought leadership in the space, get some therapy, and more?
You can find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and even TikTok at Dr. Jen Man, DrJennMann, 2 N's on Jen, 2 N's on Man. You can also check out my weekly InStyle magazine column called Hump Day with Dr. Jen. You can check out my books. My most recent one is called The Relationship Fix, Dr. Jen's 6-step guide to improving communication, connection, and intimacy. I also have some parenting books. Got a website, drjen.com, spelled out DOCTORJENN.com. But, I'm very active on social media.
Well, Dr. Jen, thank you for this time on the couch with me and for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thanks so much for having me.
So there was my conversation with Dr. Jen Mann, a licensed psychotherapist, best-selling author, TV host, SiriusXM radio host, celebrity couples therapist, sports psychology consultant, and subject matter expert on relationships. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with her. First, this one's really tough for me to discuss properly. If you literally swim with sharks frequently, then you have to know how to deal with and channel your anxiety, especially as it relates for most people to fear. But I should never discount mine or anyone else's anxiety. Anyone who says they have anxiety, as a professional says, is legit. As she said, it's important to acknowledge what others feel is real, and we're better off acknowledging it, normalizing it, and talking about it. Love the quote to when she said, "We don't heal what we don't face," and that's so true. We've got to talk more, reach out to people more that we care about. I hope we'll stop saying socially distant soon and just make it physically distant. And when I complain about hearing some people go on and on and on about anxiety, it just bothers me because I've known a lot of people who had clinically diagnosed anxiety and regularly take medication. A lot of them are in a constant state of pain, if you will, and I just hope that we learn to understand what the differences are. Like I said, our parents and our grandparents fought in wars, and great-grandparents who survived the Spanish flu. So the sacrifices we're making watching a lot of Netflix and TikTok, well, we can handle this. But I love the tough comparison as well of an amputee versus a double amputee. Is a single amputee's pain or stress, if you will, any less important because they only lost one limb? Of course not. And her point was that if it matters to you, then it's important. My own friends know that if they're in pain and they're anxious, then I'm there for them always, because whether it's one form of anxiety or another, you've got to take care of your friends and your family. And if they need professional help, then help them get a licensed therapist and not a life coach. Second, I love her prescription, if you will, on how to deal with this. 1, create structure. 2, exercise every day, even if it's an online yoga class, Peloton, meditation, whatever. 3, preparing the night before with some positive motivation. 4, write up a schedule with boundaries so you're not driving each other crazy if you live with someone. 5, look at that division of labor, which is so important if you've got a spouse or partner or roommate or whoever. 6, reduce the amount of media time. This is so critical. 7, create social time, FaceTime, Zoom happy hours with friends, online games with group. Just make sure you're connecting with people in the right way. 8, have some time that is separate from the other person. If you're sharing a space or living with somebody, you've got to have some time that's just separate. You got to have some me time, if you will, as opposed to having just together time. Number 9, for relationships, have a date time. And she had a perfect example of what she's gone through in her own relationships. Number 10, have some coronavirus-free conversations. Make sure to change the vibe. Just talk about something else. All great ideas. Third, appreciated her reference to the Serenity Prayer. As part of one version, I'll read it here. God, give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Dr. Jen's advice is to recognize what are the things that are out of our control and work on letting things go. And it's so important. And she reminds us to look at the things that we can control. What we can control is how hard we work, how well we perform, given the constraints that we're under. So make sure you don't let your anxiety distract you. And a rare fourth, and this is just a big thank you to all of the people on the front lines. I can never do this enough. What we do without the healthcare heroes, the police and fire, truck drivers who bring toilet paper, the hoarders who will calm down, but the essentials that they actually bring that we need in the stores, the people in most instances working in these grocery stores for little money but take a big risk every day to keep supplies available for our homes so that we don't see massive civil unrest. So many people out there on the front lines today, and we're all dealing with some form of anxiety, but nothing like the people on the front lines. And I mean every one of them, civilian and military. And I know they don't necessarily seek it, but I wish we could have a parade to honor them every day for their service as well. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Friends, don't be anxious. Seriously, we'll get through this. Be nice and helpful to those who need your support. And if you want to get over some anxiety, I'm not your guru, but I will swim with you with some sharks. So join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.